For 2.5 centuries, the White House South Lawn has served as one of the most recognizable stages in the world. Easter egg rolls, state dinners, foreign dignitaries greeted with orchestral precision. These rituals have defined what presidential looks like, a careful, deliberate performance of institutional authority. But a month from now, the White House is being transformed into a red octagon for UFC Freedom 250, a full professional fight card scheduled for Flag Day, America's 250th birthday, and President Donald Trump's 80th birthday. It is the first professional sporting event in the history of the White House. To some, it represents a break from generations of presidential decorum. To others, it is the most direct expression of American energy in recent memory. Today, you will understand what a mixed martial arts mega event at the White House means for American power. The story of UFC Freedom 250 begins not in 2026, but 30 years ago, in 1996, in the office of an Arizona senator named John McCain. When McCain came across a UFC tape that year, he was horrified. The sport at the time had few rules and no weight classes. Mismatched fights often came to unnecessarily gruesome conclusions. McCain wrote letters to all 50 US governors asking them to ban what he called human cockfighting. The American Medical Association immediately backed him. 36 states enacted laws against no-holds-barred fighting. Pay-per-view providers dropped UFC events entirely. The organization was instantly financially broken, legally embattled, and culturally frowned upon. But soon enough, in 2001, the UFC was purchased by Zuffa LLC for $2 million. The new owners, Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta, along with their business partner, a young man called Dana White, recognized the potential of the sport but knew that it needed to be reformed to gain mainstream acceptance. These three business partners did a makeover of the UFC. It now focused on promoting the athleticism and skill of its fighters rather than just the violence, highlighting the training, discipline, and technical abilities required to compete at the highest level. Unified rules were then implemented. Weight classes were formalized. State athletic commissions were brought in. The sport that had been condemned as barbaric began to look, to regulators and audiences alike, like something more disciplined than the critics had allowed. This is not, historically speaking, a new pattern. Greeks had Pancration, the forefather of MMA and the UFC. But it was Romans who first filled the Colosseum and also watched a sport that began in ritual violence and gradually acquired rules, structure, and prestige. What started as an execution method for prisoners of war became, over centuries, a formalized institution with its own heroes, its own devotees, and its own code of conduct. The gladiator who survived long enough became something the crowd admired rather than merely watched. By 2007, even McCain himself had changed his position. They have cleaned up the sport to the point, at least in my view, where it's not human cockfighting anymore, he told reporters. They have made significant progress. A significant milestone came in 2018 when the UFC signed a $1.5 billion broadcasting deal with ESPN, giving the sport mainstream legitimacy and bringing it to an audience it had never reached before. From near extinction to the White House South Lawn, that arc is not an accident, and one figure was present at both ends of it. But back when the media and the political establishment had labeled MMA human cockfighting and tried to push it off cable, Trump gave the UFC a home at his Taj Mahal casino in Atlantic City in 2001. This was not a popular decision in certain circles. The UFC was still widely seen as a fringe product at best, a liability at worst. 25 years later, the two men are standing in the Oval Office unveiling renderings of an octagon on the South Lawn. In May 2026, President Trump met the fighters Ilia Topuria, Justin Gaethje, Alex Pereira, and Cyril Gane in the Oval Office to discuss the event. That image, UFC champions in the Oval Office, would have been unimaginable in 1996, and it is now the official backdrop for a presidential announcement. Now, the mechanics of staging this event reveal something about how the administration has thought through its symbolism. For those hoping to attend on the South Lawn itself, premium sponsorship packages have emerged as the most reliable path to entry. These packages can cost sponsors up to $1.5 million and include perks such as a reserved seating at the pre-fight press conference, VIP access to weigh-ins, and floor tickets to future UFC events. But the event was never designed exclusively for those 4,300 seats. Dana White announced plans to install large screens at the Ellipse capable of hosting up to 85,000 spectators for a public viewing experience, with those 85,000 tickets given away for free. Fight Week also includes a UFC Freedom 250 Fan Fest on June 13th, with a press conference held at the Lincoln Memorial. The architecture of the event is two-tiered. An intimate, invite-heavy ceremony at the seat of executive power, surrounded by a public spectacle on a scale that dwarfs the South Lawn itself. There is also a regulatory dimension that has drawn its own controversy. Because the South Lawn is federal property, the District of Columbia Combat Sports Commission has no jurisdiction over the event. DC Commission Chairman Andrew Huff expressed frustration in March, telling the Washington Post, "We don't know anything. Every promoter in the District of Columbia should be and is held to the same standard." The UFC solution was to bring in the Association of Boxing Commissions as a regulatory advisor, with ABC President Timothy Shipman confirming in a March 19th press release that there is no requirement for the UFC to select a state athletic commission to oversee the event. Whatever one thinks of the politics, the fight card has been delivered on the premise. The main event is a UFC Lightweight Championship unification bout between current undisputed champion Ilia Topuria and current interim champion Justin Gaethje. Topuria, who holds a perfect 17-0 record, vacated the featherweight title to pursue the lightweight belt. Gaethje, one of the most aggressive fighters in the sport's history, earned the interim title after Topuria's rise through the division. The fight brings together the two best lightweights in the world. The co-main event is an interim UFC Heavyweight Championship bout between former two-time light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira, who also previously held the middleweight title, and former interim heavyweight champion Ciryl Gane. Former champion Sean O'Malley returns to the card in a bantamweight bout. Michael Chandler, one of the sport's most recognizable names, faces Brazilian prospect Mauricio Ruffi at lightweight. The card also features Bo Nickel at middleweight and Derek Lewis, the UFC's all-time knockout leader with 16 stoppages to his name, in a heavyweight bout. The UFC also announced that Crypto.com would fund a $1 million cryptocurrency bonus for the top performance on the card. The Trump administration has been unusually direct about its governing priorities, and the UFC event sits within a coherent ideological frame. In official White House communications, the mission has been reframed as a total restoration of the U.S. military's mission of lethality. From the strategic posture of Operation Epic Fury to the maximum pressure campaigns directed at adversaries like Iran, the guiding logic is consistent. Peace is not maintained through statements alone, but through the visible, credible capacity for force. Peace through strength, in short. Staging a championship fight at the seat of executive power takes that logic and makes it tangible. The warrior spirit in the administration's framing is no longer something confined to a training camp or a military base. The Romans had a word for this: virtues. It translated roughly as excellence, but it was always understood as excellence demonstrated under physical pressure, the kind that could not be performed or credentialed, only proven. Roman civic culture elevated the fighter not despite the violence of the arena, but because of what surviving it demonstrated. The administration's framing of UFC Freedom 250 operates on a similar logic, that the willingness to compete in a space where no amount of status protects you is itself a statement about national character. The octagon, like the Colosseum, is a place where the ordinary filters of social life, title, background, institution are set aside in favor of a simpler and older test. Approximately 1,000 seats are reserved for military personnel, a deliberate pairing of combat sports with the men and women who defend the country. The octagon operates by a logic the ancient world would have recognized immediately. In the Roman arena, the crowd did not care about the fighter's origins. A slave who fought brilliantly was applauded beside a free man who fought poorly. The hierarchy of Roman society, which governed nearly everything outside the arena walls, dissolved inside them. What remained was performance, and the crowd's judgment of it. The UFC works the same way. The belt does not go to the fighter with the best management, the most famous trainer, or the longest resume. It goes to the fighter who wins. For the administration supporters, staging that contest at the seat of the American government is not a departure from national values. It is a return to one of civilization's oldest way of honoring them. For critics, the same event raises different questions. California Governor Gavin Newsom responded ironically to the White House early renderings of the event with a pointed remark. Thank God they're focused on the priorities of all Americans. The implicit argument from that corner is one of proportion, that the South Lawn is a shared national symbol and that staging a privately funded fight card on it, however spectacular, treats that symbol casually. On Flag Day, June 14, 2026, the White House will host something it has never hosted before. The event will be simulcast on CBS and streamed on Paramount+, reaching a gigantic audience. It will be watched in living rooms, bars, and military bases around the world. The imagery, an octagon framed against the White House portico, fighters walking out of the most famous office on Earth, will be replayed in political conversations long after the final bell. But give us your thoughts. Will you watch UFC Freedom? Did you like this initiative? Is it too much? Let us know in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell. And if you want to stay ahead of our releases, click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen right now. See you in our next 10-minute brief.